Which week is this? This is the what episode? Are we in the 10th,
11th.
the 11th?
11th.
The 11th. We're already on the 11th. So we're turning it up to 11 today. This is our first actual official Messy Middle podcast with a guest. And I think we've been talking about it. We've been teasing for a while that we're going to bring someone on. We wanted to bring on an individual that has experience across the realm of messy middles and is someone that has not only been there, but is now giving back to the community. Barak Kaufman is a friend, as well as an incredible leader of post-exit founders, which is this, I think you put on LinkedIn, it's for the world's tiniest violin, for founders that have exited and what they're figuring out what to do next. So I think for all of us, that's kind of how we're feeling in this messy middle. I'll do a quick little intro, and then we'll just get into the conversation. And I think from a top line of the conversation today, from a theme standpoint, it's really, we just want to ask some questions so that our audience subscribers, I think we might have 20 now, 18. I don't know where we're at. Yeah, 21. Okay, that's good. Again, we're doing this the grassroots way. So you began your career, as I look in LinkedIn, it's not really career per se, but you began the world in banking as an associate. I have a quote there. It's, you gave banking a try one more time because you did 2, I think, summers as an associate. Confirmed it was not for you. Smiley face. You started in the startup world, if I'm pronouncing this right, Jiffity. Is it Jiffity?
Jiffity, yeah.
Jiffity. So I don't exactly know what it did, but it got you into startups. So he was in Columbus. Then you were at the Elevator Fund, which gave you sort of experience at VC. 2 years at Insight Venture Partners, which is an incredible venture fund. In 3 years. Okay. LinkedIn says 2. It's like, what is, so 3 years.
That's how you count.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Okay. So 3 years at Insight. Would love to hear how you left, decided to start Intello, and sold that to SailPoint. Kind of had your messy middle after, I'm assuming, or in between. You're at Vine Ventures now, and you started Post-Exit Founders. So we were excited to have you on the messy middle experience today.
Thanks for having me, fellas. I have a few comments back. So the first one is, I don't know why you chose me as your first guest. The only reason I can imagine is really clever growth hacking to try to go from 20 to 25 subscribers by posting in a post-exit group of 1,200 people that are in the messy middle. So I hope it works, and I hope we reach, maybe even shoot for 27 subscribers by next week. Should be awesome. The second thing is, I'm curious, Teddy and Frank, if you see this same as me. Doesn't Gabriel look like a better version of Mark Zuckerberg? Do you see this at all?
Much clearer.
Mark Zuckerberg in the social network. I've just been, every time I look at him now, it's like I see it, and I don't know why it is. Maybe it's that actor that played Mark Zuckerberg in the social network that you even look more like.
Jesse Eisenberg.
Jesse Eisenberg. Frank, you're
muted, Frank.
You're taking a phone call.
Frank. Oh my God, Frank. Where's our sound editor? I mean, geez.
I was trying to be, no, I was going to say you're pointing in the right direction, but to me, Mark is way more like an inhuman, he has this robot aspect. But I do see Gabriel as like, what's the name of the Napster guy?
Sean Parker.
Yeah,
I know Sean well, not that well,
sure.
But I've spent a lot of time at his house.
He's been in a very long, messy middle. We should definitely invite him.
Yeah, it got pretty messy there.
But you're like, I don't know, I see you more of a Sean, maybe like 50-50, I don't know.
Are you thinking personality-wise, or are you saying I look like Justin Timberlake?
Yeah, Justin, I guess. And you're in music, everything. It kind of makes sense. But
all the same. It's all the same.
We should do that's a good one. We should add that for our next one, which is like when you go to games and they're kind of placing your face next to which celebrity you look like. We could have done that for Barak, and then he just put this random famous
Just
character.
totally do that.
Well, I'll do that.
Or
with AI.
some AI, yeah. Just why not? AI infused. When that's what everything is. What was the question again? Was there a question? I lost
There wasn't a
track.
question. I was opening it up, and
Oh, yeah.
usually like Frank to start with questions. I mean, he's the American Frenchman who has a lot to say.
Well, okay,
But
okay, sure. Let me start with a maybe genuine question, which is we call our podcast the messy middle because that's how it feels for us. It feels for us, which is especially after a success, I guess there's this illusion that you're reaching a goal. And to me, it's this never-ending story with a startup, right? You start and you say, "Oh, my life is shit. I don't have an idea." Then you have an idea, and then your life is shit because you don't have a team or you don't have money to execute on it. I mean, your life is shit because you have investors and you don't get any growth. And your life is shit because you have product market fit, but you can't. Like, it never ends. And then suddenly you're like, "Oh, fuck yeah, I made it." Either you go public, either you do your exit. But then it starts all over again. And you're like, fuck, it's even worse now because everybody's like, "Oh, you've done these great things. What are you going to do next?" And you're like, I don't know. So I guess, does it feel messy to you, or was it you know, kind of a nice journey? You already saw everything in advance and
Oh man,
everything you're going to
it's
do next.
always messy. If it's not messy, there's something flawed. Yeah, let me share a couple of thoughts back. I literally just got off a call with a friend that I was talking to about this. I went to University of Michigan for college, and I'm a big Michigan sports fan. And for those that follow college football, it won the championship for the first time since I've been a fan. Not the first time in my lifetime, the first time since I've been a fan. And actually, it's the first time a sports team of mine has won any championship. I'm a Mets fan. I'm a Jets fan. I'm a Knicks fan. Michigan sports all the way through. I've been tortured my whole life, and I do really enjoy sports, and specifically collegiate sports is what I enjoy the most.
Is
So
it
this is
is it the Lions? Sorry, what's the name of the team?
Lions. Lions are the NFL team. It's the Wolverines.
Ah,
Is the
close enough.
Oh man, you really shots at the heart right now. Anyway, I think the a friend of mine would just ask you like, "Oh, it must have been amazing," and it was. And I've always thought about this. It's like when your team wins the championship, the only thing everybody talks about almost immediately next is like, we're going to repeat next year. It's all about next year. It's all about like, what is that next, milestone? And even if you take a day to, bask in the celebrations and stuff, there's still this like, what comes next? And what you ultimately remember during, the journey to that championship or there is the journey itself. And I think that's kind of like the punchline of what life's about, which is why the messy middle can feel so uncomfortable for people. Like you build towards this company, you struggle through the roller coaster, you reach some sort of success, and then you think you have it. And, life does get easier, at least for me it did, right? Like to have a little bit less financial anxiety. I thought I would have no financial anxiety. Turns out it never truly goes away. But but the purpose and fulfillment and the meaning of life just never really changes. And I think the meaning is like this endless pursuit. And so it's not so much about what you're working on, but when you don't have clarity for the thing that you're working on, that it feels so messy because you're still trying to figure it out. And I think it's actually should be the exciting middle, but it feels like the messy middle for everyone because you have this opportunity to kind of recalibrate with no other expectations and figure out what endeavor you want to go after, whether it's for profit, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's nothing, and focus on family. But you have the ultimate freedom and the ability to choose. The reason it feels so uncomfortable is, at least if you were a founder that exited, this identity is stripped away. And that's ultimately why I started this post-exit founder group, right? It's like we sold our company in early 2021. And I was at the acquirer for about a year and a half, but that's when the journey starts, is like when you're resting investing. And I had a lot of questions. There were the mundane questions, like tax and wealth advice. And then there were what felt like the existential questions around identity and purpose. And what am I supposed to be doing? It's when someone says, what do you do? I definitely don't want to say I'm a product exec at a corporate company. That doesn't really, feel like it defines me. But there was something about startup founder that did define me.
and
And
so
it was a first, yeah, go ahead.
interrupting here because I want to make sure we ask some good questions. So you acquired resting investing. Did you stay through the full vesting period? Did you have when you're there and you're like, look, I was a founder of this company, I raised money, I, was able to sell. Now I'm at VP at SailPoint or whatever the title, the actual title was, from the identity crisis to actually staying there. Did you stay through the vesting period and you know, and what once you left, two questions. Once you left, and you got through this, okay, we've made it successful. The team, was able to be placed at the company where they made money. The investors made their money. What was that point where you went from my identity was here and now it's gone? Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So on the first question, so we were acquired by SailPoint. SailPoint at the time was a publicly traded cybersecurity company. It's led by a founder, Mark McLean, who is still the CEO, and he's been through exits of his own. And he actually, I give them a ton of credit. They really had a lot of empathy for like the founder being acquired, kind of path. And I ultimately had a great experience at SailPoint of being part of their team. Um, so, that's kind of like the first thing, and it helped a lot to be able to have a founder-led company that kind of understood that. And as part of that, the earnout was 2 years. I've met a lot of exited founders, at least 500 one-on-one in just the last couple of years. Uh, on the longest side, it's about a 5-year vest, usually four, but sometimes five. On the shortest side, sometimes you get under a year or nothing, but usually it's at least a year. I had a 2-year kind of rest and vest, and and during that, I also had an acceleration if I was to get fired or to leave, and so I was able to just be myself and be my authentic self, and not feel like I had to play a politics game or worry about being fired. And that was interesting, kind of different. It created, I think, a positive culture, I believe, for SailPoint to kind of have that infused, like take like the comfort and like the a lot of the yes people and have like a no person or a person that kind of questions things. So that's the first thing. I ended up staying for a year and a half and not 2 years. And the reason was SailPoint was publicly traded. They were taken private by Thoma Bravo in late 2022. That actually accelerated my vesting. And regardless, we kind of like achieved what we were looking to achieve with me during that transitional phase. And so it made sense for me to kind of exit. I got the full, earnout, but it was a year and a half instead of 2 years. The messy middle started almost immediately after the exit, and we had a cash transaction where 90% for myself at least was cash up front. And so that's when those decisions start to happen, where you feel like you have that freedom. And that's when I started my own exploration. And that's when the group kind of took off and went from these 10 friends and mentors to 1,200 founders. And so I was able to do my own messy middle journey while learning from a lot of others and their messy middle journey.
And what was like the moment of clarity of starting this group? Was it literally just like, hey, we've all exited, what's going on? Or um, who, how did that happen?
I've done this in the past. I tend to find the most valuable advice I could get about anything is talk to someone that's been through that thing. And so originally when moving to New York and starting a venture, created kind of um, a community that kind of sprung up from that, like a group of friends that were kind of helping me put them together in a group, and that turned into its own community. Then I started one for founders in New York. There were mostly founders ahead of me. It was kind of my hack to kind of learn from people that were going through it. That community also kind of grew. And I started to realize it was the same thing in post-exit life. The people that I had in my circles, um, the communities I had weren't really solving the need for like the answers and the clarity and the objective feedback I needed. I think as you described it, Gabriel, like I like to call it like uh, the world, like play the world's tiniest violins for each other, right? Like it's very hard to go talk to your high school friend and say, "Hey, I just made all this money and I don't know what to do with my life." They'll probably tell you to go fuck off and figure it out. I don't know if you're allowed to curse in this, but I'm just go for it.
And curses a lot,
And
it's fine.
and they should say that, right? Like that's in their right. And that's why it's really important. I think no matter what stage of life you are and where you're at, like to just have a support group that understands you. And that's what I was hoping this community would be. It grew way faster than I expected, and it's kind of evolved to be something very different than intended, but in a good way, a positive way. But yeah.
Was there a point after you like were done with SailPoint, or at what point did you realize that maybe you wanna do something next in regards to, I don't know, maybe starting something else, or just trying to figure out what went through your head, if you can remember that, like any feeling of being lost maybe at some point, or you kind of always knew what's going to be the next step there?
Yeah, I think I'm still lost in some ways. I have a lot more clarity, but it's like a relative spectrum. I think life would be pretty boring if it was like completely figured out. I think like the pursuit of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment is like endless, even if you have the primary thing that you're working on. So for me, Teddy, it was like I was doing that introspection as this group was growing. And I was fortunate to meet a lot of founders to kind of sit with it. And Frank and I were talking recently about this, but I found for myself that I was doing a lot of investing. So I came from venture, then had an exit. I have a lot of friends in the venture community. I kind of ended up doing a bunch of angel investing myself. I partnered with Insight Partners, where I used to work, to have a vehicle under my name that I invest through. And then I also am an operating partner with an early stage fund called Vine Ventures. Vine aside, just between the angel and the scout, of which I kind of make decisions, I've done a little over 50 investments. Too many to all of a sudden realize that I don't love investing. It's actually not the thing that drives the purpose and fulfillment for me. And in some ways, I really don't enjoy it. And what I don't enjoy is that a good investor, they're saying no 95, maybe 99% of the time. And I like to meet a founder and hear about their vision for the future and think about like, how do we increase the odds of success and make this happen? Not all the reasons that like we should kind of pass and move on to kind of the next founder that's out there. And so it took me too long to realize that during that messy middle phase. But I was dabbling with investing, and I still love to support those founders. I also started to realize for myself.
Too long is how long? I'm interrupting, so save the thought. Too long is how long?
Too long. I don't remember what I said too long about. Too long to invest. There was too many investments.
Too many investments. So over what time period did you realize that?
Well, I continue to make investments because I'm addicted to founders and supporting them. So it's been about 3 years of investing.
Got it. Okay.
And it was probably a dozen or slightly more in the first year, 20 to 30 in the second year, and then less, since. So the pace has kind of slowed down, but I'm still occasionally doing it. I also realized for myself, I don't want to be CEO of a company again. And that was when the messy middle really got like confusing and lost. It's like, wait, I don't really love this investing thing.
Why is that? I love this remark. I had the same debate with a friend of mine, and I don't know if you guys follow XKCD, these cartoons. There's this time about like first time founder, I want to be CEO. And the other one is like, no, I want to be CEO. And then experienced founder, I was like, you CEO, like the other one, like, no, you CEO.
Love it.
So I'm wondering why is that? Like, why do you hate about being a CEO, or why you didn't like?
I wouldn't describe it as hate, but it's more about what I do. Like, I always try to think about it, and I credit my co-founder for my last company, Shomo, for a lot of this, but I simplify it to like what gives me energy versus what drains my energy, to try to help clarify during this messy middle phase around like what is pulling me in and what is things that I don't enjoy doing, and how do I have more of the things that give me energy and less of things that don't. And what I found that was draining my energy when we were building our company was the things that motivate the best operators and founders that I know, which is building the culture, recruiting people, managing people, mentoring folks, right? Like mentoring specifically, when you talk to really great founders, entrepreneurs, operators, they love nothing more than recruiting someone who is less experienced, seeing them succeed, maybe go on to start their own company. And I think that is awesome and admirable and commendable. It's just not what I personally enjoy. I like working with people. What gives me energy is working with people smarter and better than me, and trying to hold my own with them, trying to kind of like punch up in terms of like weight class. I like not having a boss Turns out I love not having anybody report to me. So all of a sudden it was like, I mean, that's not, you can't be a CEO in that sort of role. And it's not about the time part of the flexibility. I'm just like self-motivated, and that's just like how I like to spend my time.
So that's
And
kind of your
so
compass,
I could talk
right?
about more, but yeah.
No, I was going to ask, it's kind of your compass for your messy middle, right? You kind of follow the path of not less resistance, but more energy in a way. You're like, nah, not that way. Like investments, that's not what I want to do. Nah. Like so right now you're kind of ending up in, you like creating things like very early on, builder, and then you just walk that path. Is that an accurate version of what you're doing?
I love building. I love being in the arena. I like working with people, that inspire me, that I like spending time with, right? From a kind of individual way. And I care more about like the mission impact than I think I realized when money was a stressor. And again, the financial anxiety is always kind of there. It doesn't mean I don't want to continue to do well, uh, but it's not my main motivator. And I really want to, be proud of the impact that I make, and to leverage this opportunity that I have, and to increase the odds of making a difference in some way, leaving this earth better than it was before I came there.
What
So
do
those are
you
the things that matter to me.
just curious also in terms of building versus thinking about building and planning? You're obviously builder. You want to build things, but then when do you know it's the right time to start with the building phase versus sort of thinking about what you want to work on next? When is the right time or the trigger to commit to something?
Yeah. So I'll answer it in a slightly indirect way, but I'll try to keep it short and get to the point. Like, so where I've landed is building around people. And so what I found is, as I reflected on my investments, I believe all of them will do well, but the ones that I've regretted, regardless of whether they'll do well or not, were the ones where I over-indexed to the idea, the traction, the market. The ones that I've never regretted, is the ones where I over-indexed to the founders. Whether they do well or not, I don't really care. Like, life's too short. Spend time with people that, inspire you, that you believe in, that you want to spend time with, that give you energy. And that's the same way I think about building. Like, if I'm not going to be the CEO, then I shouldn't have equity, that's like, I should have equity that's commensurate with my engagement, not with, like, there's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think a lot of, for example, startup studios take the wrong structure with that, and it leads to uh, obvious outcomes, that are not in the interest of making as big of an impact as you can. And so instead, what I do, Teddy, is I partner with one exit founder at a time and try to dig deep into what are the problems that he or she cares about, what are the markets that they care about, and then there's 3 ways to build companies: build for problems you experience firsthand, build for problems that people around you experience, or build for first principles. In my opinion, they're in order of easiest to hardest, but also least likely to most likely to be the biggest opportunity for you to work on. And so the way that I kind of approach it is like, get deep into the right market, the right passion area, then the right big problem, and then the right solution. And there's also this saying, I think it's Justin Cotter said it, like, first time founders build and then sell. Second time founders sell and then build, or focus on distribution and then build. And so to me, Teddy, it's not about building. It's more about like doing, and doing is not just thinking, but it's like, how do you hack distribution and, get the customer signed before you build anything, and like make sure this is a big enough pain point where they'll open up their wallets, right? So like, that's kind of the way that I think about it.
I mean, it's basically figuring out how to get to product market fit first versus building everything and then realizing there's no product market fit. I mean, hard, but it's getting the initial traction. How do you select for the 2 questions? So you have PEF, and I like to do these back to back. It's just something that I need to work on. I'll talk to my therapist about it. Back to back questions. You've got PEF. Effectively, you kind of are the CEO of PEF, right? I mean, it's not, but like, you are the guy, unless I'm mistaken, and there's like 10 other people behind you running
It's just
everything.
me.
Yeah. Okay, so so I want to know, what are you going to do there? Like, because that is messy, right? Like it's this fantastic group, but it takes a lot of your time, and it fuels. I'm assuming it fuels you as well. Just lost my pen there. Fuels you as well. So you've got that. My question is, what are you going to do with kind of PEF and sort of being CEO there, even though I'm misspeaking, misstating, and then you have the approach where you want to work with founders one-on-one. Do you see scaling that as well? So
Yeah. Let me answer the second part of it first, and because I also want to comment back on one thing you said. I don't think you can achieve product market fit before building, but I think you can achieve problem market fit. And I think a lot of
yes.
entrepreneurs that haven't built before, build solutions and look for problems, right? Like the
Mhm.
the the hammer
Crypto.
looking for the nail, classic one. And I think instead you, yeah, you can ensure that you have problem market fit, and then try to find the right solution that will kind of warrant it, and then you got to figure out the product market fit. I don't know how to scale that right now, so it's like one company at a time, all in full time during that 0 to 1 until I kind of work myself out of a job. That's kind of the second part of your question. The first part of your question, I absolutely love this post exit founder community that I started. And before we got on this call, we were talking about kind of my calendar and like, and I got to work on it because I'm just, I work till after midnight most nights here in Tel Aviv, and back to back calls, and try to fit in as many as I can to meet, mostly to meet new post exit founders that kind of join the community. And I want to spend more time on it. And I want to make sure that this grassroots community we built continues to feel grassroots, continue to be about supporting each other, but can kind of grow and scale with both like the resources behind it and with all the additional value that I think the community could be getting if there was more of a focused effort at it. And so, in the same vein, I don't want to be CEO of anything. The founder of the post exit community, I think I will continue to be an active founder and not build like a huge team around it because I don't want it to lose that grassroots feeling, but to slowly kind of scale up um, the right in-house team. Now that will probably mean introducing other, forms of value added services that will be paid versus free. So I want what exists today, which for those that are listening to this and in the 20 subscribers and don't know what we're referring to, the community is started on Signal, right, which is where most of the communication happens. It's an email listserv, everything from deal flow to service provider advice to health and wellness tips. There's in-person meetups. We did the first retreat in Miami where we had 200 exited founders attend, in probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 different cities around the world. There's more or less monthly meetups that are just kind of grassroots. So I want all that to stay the same. And to me, it's about the mission of helping these extraordinary exited founders on that endless pursuit of meaning, fulfillment, and purpose.
I love it. I love it. Um, I hope we don't charge for too much stuff. I hope we monetize in a way that maybe we could get like some billionaire post exit founder just to sponsor the whole community. I had a
Sounds
friend do
great.
that.
You
Yeah.
you
So
you got the network. Go hang out with Sean or Fabrice or send one of them our way. We'll
little
figure it out.
lag there,
No,
the
and
Wi-Fi, right?
I agree. We talked about it before, and I talked to Gabriel too about it. But I think, yeah, how do you monetize a community without killing it is actually it's actually something you like few people think about. The non-profit approach, which we did with Startup Weekend, was one. Yeah, when I was talking to Gabriel, like full disclosure, he told me that if a community would ask him to pay to join, then he wouldn't join. And I think a lot of people feel that way because I don't know, I feel like I'm getting scammed whenever people are like, hey, join this great community, it's $5,000. Like, well, fuck you. It's like, if it's so great, it's like you should welcome me. But the idea of the community is also in a way smart and kind of feel these things. And my experience is the community supports you into what makes sense, right? And we'll just slap you in the face whenever you're trying to squeeze it. So I totally agree. But it looks like you're kind of at the end of this messy middle. Like you have a lot more clarity than I guess like a year ago. Could you go back in time like a year ago or 2 years ago before you even started that, and looking back at it, like did you have other path you think you would have pursued that you kind of dropped just to or
Yeah, I mean, the most common path is just like start something new. right?
Oh.
You
But
take
did
some
you have
time.
other new things you already killed? Like, did you already kill like a couple of ideas you had early on?
I did. We started two different healthcare software companies. Me and my co-founder of my last company, we self-funded them. We hired a couple of people for them, uh, and it was part of like that journey and part of that learning. Uh, the what I realized is I didn't want to be the CEO of either of them, and my co-founder didn't either. And so then it came to, okay, can we find the right CEO? And then what we found is like we actually, I mean, we did really, really thoughtful ideation, patient, thoughtful ideation with both. I actually still believe in both ideas, or that there's like legs to it. Uh, but I don't believe you can hire founders. I just don't. And so when they weren't part of the hundreds of conversations we had with physicians or the dozens of conversations with self-insured employers, and then you just try to parachute a founder in to kind of like run with it. We even offered it to a few founders, like clean cap table, just kind of like take it. But like, because we just thought the idea should exist in the world, but like, it just doesn't work, right? Like
Yeah.
you need to be part of that ideation. And so that was kind of a learning to me on two fronts. One, that was partly how I realized I didn't want to be CEO, even though those were like mission oriented and companies I, you know, enjoyed. I enjoy the process of the 0 to 1, and I found it daunting to think about the process of the 1 to N. It's like not what I wanted to really work on. And secondly, I found that like a second route that I was considering was starting a startup studio, which is pretty common, post exit journey when they go through that cartoon and that Frank was mentioning. And I realized I don't really want to commit to another one of these crazy journeys,
I
and I became really skeptical on the studio model, partly for that reason.
I agree with you. I have the same issue, and I tested the same thing 3 times. My last iteration being at first we were looking for a CEO, couldn't find one. I mean, found one, but as you said, it's not the same to hire someone who has no passion, and it's about the money. And then I agree, you have these misfits when you do a studio. But then what I did is I still convinced my co-founder to become CEO, who now regrets it, but at least I found one.
This is recorded, right? Your poor co-founder.
He's fine with it. He knows it. We talk about like that's the other thing is like when
He'll
you
be
have people who are
subscriber
friends.
22, I think. So,
Must be. No, but he knows. But now we're back at shit. We need to find someone. And I guess the strategy, the only way I found to find that is you still have to commit at least 2 years, and then get a CEO that you can kind of grow into a CEO. But I don't know. I'm sharing that for anyone who watch it. But it's I agree. You can parachute a CEO. Never works.
I also feel like, because I'm going through my messy middle period. I mean, all of us. And I've been pitched to run fully baked startup or de-risk startups. And they're like, look, you get 40%, we keep 60%. It was all different models. And every time I've been pitched that, it's like I feel like, okay, number one, the things that I'm good at are raising money, recruiting, and not necessarily the idea, but that's usually from the people that I meet, and decent at selling. And I'm like, so you want to take 60% and I get 40% of an idea that I don't even like, and then you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, well, I got to tell them no, and I feel bad. And then you're like this model of startup studios and kind of like I think of it as like like a startup manufacturer. Like it doesn't work. And I know there's sometimes it does work, right? There's some examples, but I can't name 5 examples on my hand of startup studios. I mean, you have Idea Lab a long time ago, right? That have delivered something. And if you really like, we all know what it's like to wake up in the middle of the night as a founder and be like, I'm not gonna be able to do payroll. I'm not gonna be able to do this. I'm not if this deal doesn't go through, or if this doesn't happen. And I think it's hard to feel that way if you've done that before as a founder and want to place yourself into a role and be like, okay, I'm a founder CEO of this new thing. So, and I've encountered and experienced that during sort of my messy middle period of people trying to pitch me to join things that are like kind of baked.
I guess it boils down to you cannot get out of a messy middle with someone else telling you what clarity looks like. It has to come from you.
Ugh, it's so hard. Yeah, I don't know. Is that have you seen that, Barak, with all of the different founders, that it's like it has to come from their direction versus like, I don't know, some coach or you telling them like, oh, I think you should do this. I think you like, how have you seen the founders that you've interacted with the light at the end of the tunnel? Because we want some positivity as well during this messy
Yeah,
middle
yeah,
period.
of course. I mean, it
Hope.
is all positive. As I started with, I think the messy middle is like, as uncomfortable as it is, it's like one of the biggest blessings. And I think the people that had the most clarity coming out of it don't spend the messy middle actively trying to figure out what's next. They spend the messy middle just like meeting interesting people, starting podcasts with friends, like, traveling the world, like reading about different topics, getting involved in philanthropies that like spoke to them. And eventually
That's
just like the stars kind of align in the right way. And the more stress you put on it, the harder it is to reach that light. And I think during that, I had all those things. I had a coach who helped me a lot. I had a really supportive co-founder. I had a really supportive life partner, wife, who, was able to have a lot of conversation with. I had 500 exited founders that I've been able to kind of like learn from. Both the do's and don'ts, right? Like when you spend enough time with someone and they're willing to open up about the regrets as well, which I think to me is where I learned the most. So anyway, I guess my point is, I think the people uh, that get the most out of the messy middle and end with the most clarity are the ones that try to get the least out of it. They just,
that sounds
follow
so
where it
cheesy,
takes
but
them.
I think you're right. It's isn't like there's like some movies like that where you cannot go to the end goal of a movie or whatever if you don't let go of everything else. It's I think it's true. I think the more you cramp towards what's next, I need to figure out what's next. Or dating, I think that's the other one, right? It's like the more you're trying to be like I need to get married and find my wife, the less you'll find one. It's it's hard, right, to let
Dating's a
go.
great,
Like
great
it's
example. Yeah.
counterintuitive.
It's like the hero's journey. You got to get lost a little bit and on the journey and come back to your
Yeah,
village and then say, "Oh, I see what it's worth it," and then leave again
and
and
I
figure it
guess
out.
yeah, and I guess the goal of this podcast somehow is to help to see if we can find some patterns which you're also looking for, Barak. But I remember this interview, and I think we talked about it with Sam, who recently has been through some kind of messy, very short middle. But yeah, he said like when you're in between and you're in Silicon Valley and people
Sam
say what
Altman,
do you
Sam Altman,
yeah
by the
Sam
way.
Altman, sorry. um, and people ask him what do you do, and you're like I'm doing nothing for a year, and people say okay, and then they move to the next one, and I think it's kind of weird, where you were so active and networking, and suddenly you have to be comfortable with having no clue what you do.
It's where it's where the growth happens, right? Because it's less about the what you are to everybody else and more about what you are to yourself. And because you find out that nobody really gives a shit. Right? Like we all
Yeah,
have this like spotlight effect on us that like we're so important, we matter so much, and especially if you're raised in a loving parents and you're comfortable home, you're kind of told that from a young age, and then you realize that like people ask not because they cared so much, but
mm,
sometimes because they were jealous, and more so the right people ask because they care about you. And you spent so much of your time on that company or whatever else, and like all of a sudden your identity was formed, and like to shed all that, to then have the clarity and the openness to figure out what's next. I'll give you some, kind of out there examples. One post-exit founder became a woodworker, took some time and realized like what he really enjoyed was like making furniture, and started going to these woodworking shops and meeting like these expert woodworkers all over the world. Um, and and took like 2 years doing that. Ultimately, he found that like he loved it, and woodworking would always be a part of him. But he actually wanted to go back to kind of like building and like the tech industry. Um, but like he needed to be a woodworker for a while and scratch an itch to do that. Or another founder who became a elementary school math teacher. He started a $1 billion plus company, um, and he just has always really wanted to be a teacher, and became a teacher. What he found out though was that you have no flexibility in life because you have to be in the school for during the school hours. Your colleagues are not there by choice. They're there to make money, and they're not really motivated colleagues that you are used to kind of working with. Uh, and the impact that you thought you were making on the kids, you're a glorified babysitter. And so he was like, this is probably not the way that I could make the most impact. And so, but if you don't go try, and we only have one life to live, then you'll never know. And I think I envy those people sometimes that have like clarity on those things that they've always wanted to pursue and try, whatever that might look like. Or I spoke to somebody yesterday who also started a very big company in the past that he sold, and he is starting a wellness spring, kind of wellness resort. And again, I think he's going through learnings. Like he's got to leave his family to travel. It's like 5 hours from where he lives, to check on the site, and there's like trade-offs. But it's also what he enjoys doing. So you start to just like slowly figure out like what are those things that are giving you energy? What are the things that are draining energy? How do you hire or replace the work to do the things that are not, and move towards the things that are? So it's the way it's done.
It's Frank and I and Teddy. We always have these conversations of like, you know, what could we do otherwise if we wanted to take a break? And I like the idea of woodworking, Frank. I feel like you would be a
I've got
bartender.
no. There may be a pattern here. I've got two friends post exit who do woodworking. Could be.
It's a big trend
Because
among
with your hands,
developers.
maybe it's. I mean, it's yeah.
I don't know.
Super huge trend between my developer friends where they would burn out from building software and they just do woodworking and stuff like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Could be a workshop. Should we end with a
So
quote?
yeah, we should end with a quote. I'm thinking we got a ton of incredible content here for our community. We always end with a quote. I think we have a special quote this week. Barak, you've got that quote. Let's see if I have the book here. Just
I was gonna joke.
looks
I
like
was gonna
it's
say it's gonna be Miley Cyrus.
uh,
The
she
important
was
part of a
inspired by
journey is the
Viktor
journey.
Frankl.
Is the journey.
Same genre.
Exactly. Yeah. She's a modern day Viktor Frankl, you know. So you have
Yeah,
the
my
quote.
quote.
You want to read? Yeah,
Yeah,
read the
yeah.
quote. Read the quote. Let's do it.
Sure. So the quote's from Viktor Frankl. It's from his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and freedom. So it's a pretty wordy quote. But really at the core of it, Viktor Frankl is a Holocaust survivor who went through a lot of the concentration camps. He is also a world-renowned psychologist. And the punchline of kind of all of his psychology, and especially this book, is that man searches for meaning, right? That's really what drives us, not the Freudian sexual motivations or the Nietzsche ideas, but like different. And he saw it through the atrocities that he experienced. Um, and and most of the book is not about the atrocities; it's about the learnings on meaning. And what this quote means to me, at least, is you can't always control what life throws at you. So I imagine a lot of this audience are post-exit founders that have been fortunate to, through hard work and luck, be successful. Maybe not everybody listening, but you can't control what those obstacles are or what those, outcomes are that kind of come. What's really important to that point about the messy middle is kind of taking the space to think, to reflect, to grow, because the response and how we act and the actions that we take is where all the growth is and what really matters. That's it. That's all I got.
Very well said.
Thank you so much. This is incredible first guest that we had. Thank you, Barak Kaufman.
We'll put the link to
everybody.
some of his books. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for Viktor Frankl, yeah, logotherapy, and we will see everybody next week for I think it's number 12. I think so. So, and if anybody would like to reach out to you or PEF,
No, the way to get in is email me, Kaufman Barak, last name, first name, kaufmanbarak@gmail.com, or reach out over LinkedIn. I could share more information about how to join the community, or just chat, get to know you, what you're up to.
thank you so much.